DFS. It is Friday, December 30th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to our Week 17 DFS Draft Show. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. With me, as always, is Jared Smola. Jared, we're going to be doing, like we did the past 2 weeks, some underdog drafting, some sleeper drafting. But before we get into drafting teams for this week, we're going to take a look back at what won for friend of the show, James Brimacombe, in the Underdog Battle Royale last week, right?
Yeah, it took it down 20K for James. We could pull up his team here. So he had the Dak, Prescott, CD Lamb stack. No run back on the Eagles side. And the other thing he did was he played Saquon, Hawkinson, and Jefferson, without Kirk Cousins. So, this is the type of lineup where I think it's a smart lineup and it's a different lineup at the same time, right? Because for me, if I have Jefferson and Hawk, I'm drafting Kirk Cousins. Now, Dak ended up outscoring Kirk Cousins by a few points, and that is kind of the difference. If you look at, I think the teams that came in second were Kirk Cousins, very similar teams: Kirk Cousins, Saquon Barkley, T.J. Hawkinson, Jefferson, Lamb, Devonta Smith. So we're talking two different players basically that made the difference between winning 20K and 7,500. So this is just an example of the type of lineups I think you want to build that are still correlated and make sense, but are not what everyone else is doing. And I had a team here that I thought was in really good shape going into the late games. I had the Cousins, Saquon, Jefferson, Hawkinson with Devonta Smith and Tony Pollard. So I was basically a big Tony Pollard game short of being in the mix here. That the team that came in second was actually this team with CD Lamb instead of Tony Pollard. So I feel like I'm starting to figure it out.
Team? Sorry,
Cousins.
Or Cousins, okay.
Yep. With with Jefferson, Hawks. So it's such a textbook team. It would have been a nice team to win with, right? As a double stack with a run back and then a mini correlation with Pollard and Devonta Smith. So I'm getting there. I'm going to win it. One of these last 2 weeks. It's mine.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There are a couple of interesting things in there. First, it shows you just how perfect it has to be to win a tournament. Obviously, that's true across DFS, but as you make an even smaller lineup, it has to be even more perfect. Where the lineup you just showed, Tony Pollard wasn't bad, but 11 points doesn't get you there. It got you in the money, but it doesn't get you to the ultimate, challenging for the top. And we talk a lot about differentiating lineups. Obviously, when we're doing a full lineup, it's easier to differentiate because you're looking for some lower owned guys. But when it's 6 players and you don't always need to reach outside, we'll still talk about some guys beyond the top of ADP who have upside and can help you against a large field. But I like looking at Dak Prescott with those Vikings players in that's a way that it's different than other Vikings stacks, as you mentioned,
right,
but not different in the same way that we're used to getting different with our DFS lineup building.
Exactly. We've talked on previous shows, I think, about, taking guys in these contests that aren't being drafted often. I still think that's valuable in some cases and in some weeks, but I'd rather win. I think it's more likely to win with a team like this that still gets different without going too far off the board with an individual player. All 6 of these guys were drafted in most drafts. I think Dak was right around that quarterback 6 range where, he wasn't drafted every time, but, he wasn't scrolling way down the board to get to. So I think, this is kind of how I want to be building lineups going forward.
And of course, playing the way that James Brimacombe plays is not going to be a bad idea for most people. If you play much on Underdog, then you've definitely come across him. He's been a guest on our podcast before, talking with me about best ball drafting. Won both big playoff tournaments last year, one on Underdog and on Drafters. So yeah, James Brimacombe, friend of the show, nice guy to interact with on Twitter. Certainly somebody who's open to talking about how to play best ball if anybody does want to reach out to him that way. Let's move forward now, though, and look at this week 17 main slate on Underdog for drafting. We'll start with ADP like usual. And Jared, at quarterback for me, I don't think that I'm really reaching beyond. We talked on the FanDuel show about the slate being weird in that the game got flexed out. the FanDuel slate is missing that Chargers game. We look here and Justin Herbert is in the mix.
Yep.
He's 6th among quarterbacks for drafting here. We talked about him on the Thursday show. We've talked about him not on the podcast. He makes me a little bit nervous right now because he hasn't really been delivering to the level that he should be, but it's a pretty tight field of quarterbacks. I think he's in the mix here, and I'm not reaching really beyond this top group.
Yeah, clear top 2 at quarterback, which I think makes sense. As crazy as it seems, I'm more interested in Fields than Mahomes. I just like Fields' ultimate upside more this week in a game where I think it's going to be high scoring. The Bears are probably going to be chasing, unless Denver can push back on Mahomes. I'm not sure we get a ceiling game out of him. So I've been taking Fields more, in the second round of these drafts. Otherwise, to me, it's wait until your 5th or 6th round pick. Get your correlation. Goff's ADP is climbing. By the way, early in the week he was closer to here. His ADP was in the 30s, but I still think he's a good target. He's going in the 5th, 6th round of these.
Yeah, so I like going after Goff here. I like Kirk Cousins. I would play Justin Herbert here, so I'm okay with waiting on those guys. Jalen Hurts is pretty high for. Obviously, he'd be higher than that if we knew he was playing. So I guess I shouldn't say high, but that's part of what makes me a little bit nervous about drafting these early in the week. I guess if you're drafting at that point, you're playing enough lineups that you want that exposure. You're willing to take the risk that he doesn't ultimately play. Obviously, whether he plays is going to affect a lot, and Gardner Minshew is not even in view right now. So drafters are assuming that Jalen Hurts is going to play.
So, one thing we haven't talked about with these underdog drafts yet is they do have, I think it's called a late swap or a swap function or whatever, where if you draft someone that ends up inactive, it'll sub in the highest ranked player who wasn't drafted in that draft at the position. And you can also alter those rankings. So if you draft a lot of Jalen Hurts, if he ends up inactive, you're going to get a different quarterback swapped in for him. And you can set the rankings of how you want those guys swapped in. Now, what I don't know is if you were to draft Gardner Minshew this week and he ends up active, but as the backup, I think you're stuck with him.
Probably.
So that makes Minshew actually a riskier pick than Jalen Hurts right now. So I do think Hurts is a fine pick at that ADP because if we knew he was playing, he's probably quarterback 3, I would guess, closer to Justin Fields.
Good call, and another vote in favor of knowing the format before you jump in too heavy.
Sure.
Running back ADP, we've got obvious names up top: Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Austin Eckler doesn't look like we really need to worry about his injury too much this week. Started limited and has remained there, but he's still practicing. Travis Etienne, 4th. Like in what's that? Is that the top of round 3? These are 6-team drafts.
Yeah, right? Correct. Yep.
Is that low for him? 4th running back, you think, isn't particularly low, but round 3 means, every team has taken 2 players and then he's off the board.
Yeah. So, McCaffrey's my top player on this slate, actually. And he's, 2.7 in ADP. So I like McCaffrey. I like Barkley. Otherwise, this ETN Cook Connor range has been the one I've been smashing, often taking 2 of those guys, with my 2nd and 3rd or 3rd and 4th round pick. To me, I like Stevenson. After that, it gets a bit shaky at running back to me. So I've been trying to get, at least 1 and ideally 2 within these top 6 guys.
Looking at these guys is what makes it difficult for me to take that quarterback that's going in the first 2 rounds of these drafts, because I think it is easier to find a quarterback who gets enough. And especially if you already set the table with a receiver, a running back, a tight end, whatever, Travis Kelce, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that kind of sets up what you want at quarterback. Or, even the James Brimacombe team we were talking about, where if you're going different from the Vikings, you still set it up by taking CeeDee Lamb. You take a couple of receivers early and then you see where things are going quarterback wise. It gives you some flexibility.
For sure. Yeah. And I think as we move to wide receiver here, to me, receiver is pretty flat beyond the top four guys. I think, I think Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Hill, AJ Brown, to me, the clear top 4 and the guys with like the upside to score, 25 points on Underdog. After that, from Keenan Allen to, these guys available with your last pick, I don't see a whole lot of separation. So, that's another reason I've been trying to get those running backs early and then spending, 2 or 3 of my, final 3 picks at wide receiver.
And I do think that if you feel that way about the wide receivers, it makes it easier to take Justin Fields in that round 2 range. Any sneaky guys at quarterback, or not quarterback, at wide receiver for you this week that you've been taking late in hopes of big ceilings?
Mike Evans, 6th-round pick on Underdog.
You're
I'm
just
in on him.
determined to lose as much money on Mike Evans as possible this season.
I'm in him. I think Mike Evans in 6th round, like Juju Smith-Schuster. And again, a lot of these 6th-round picks, I mean, I think Evans, Juju, Mike Williams, I still think he has, the upside to be a top 5 wide receiver on this slate. Those are 3 of my highest owned receivers right now.
I think Zay Jones is also attractive down in that range. I think he's very similar in upside to the guys that you were talking about. By the way, breaking news on the show, Antonio Gibson has been ruled out for this week. So that's going to help Brian Robinson. And, if we're drafting right now, maybe we want to go ahead and snatch up some Brian Robinson before the field can adjust to that news.
Yeah, he's not even getting drafted in all these. He's kind of on that fringe.
That's a little nuts to me. We didn't go that far down the running back list, but I think Brian Robinson, I know it's one running back is what you need. So we're only drafting 6. So I guess it's not really nuts. That's one of those things when you play in all these different formats, it's tough to immediately reset your mind to what should and shouldn't be happening. But Brian Robinson's somebody that I would certainly get multiple shares of in this format.
For sure. And I mean, all these guys are close. But again, these are all guys, from probably from acre down who aren't these. So you can definitely kind of pick and choose them and get guys that are going to be lower owned.
I like Brian Robinson straight up over Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, Jerick McKinnon, and Ramondre Stevenson this week. So, I mean, I guess Stevenson might be the weakest stance among those, but yeah, so I revert to my previous consternation at Brian Robinson being so far down there.
Get in Underdog and start drafting them.
That's right. Over to tight end. Obviously, it's Travis Kelce. Then it's everybody else. George Kittle at the end of round 2. TJ Hawkinson well down beyond that. Evan Ingram 4th. So it looks like Evan Ingram's a target right here, huh?
Ingram's a target. Kelce's a target. Obviously, I think he is a top 3 pick as he is in most of these. A guy I've been taking super late if I don't have a tight end yet. My 6th-round pick is David Njoku. I think he has similar upside to these guys. And again, is not going drafted in a lot of these.
And Taysom Hill seems to consistently show up higher here than he does in relative prominence in other DFS formats.
Yeah. I mean, I think it still makes sense. I think, he still has the ceiling where if, he has a 2 touchdown game, he's obviously going to be the guy you need to have.
Mm-hmm. So, Jared, we ready to jump into one of these drafts and see?
Let's go draft Brian Robinson.
Quick. So Battle Royale, just to go back over the format again, you draft 6 players, you draft them against 5 other teams, but you're competing against a whole field. So you want to build a tournament team, whatever that specifically means for you. You're filling 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and then 1 flex spot. It's half PPR scoring.
Correct. I'm starting to set my cue here. My general strategy this week has been, if I have a top 4 pick, to me, it's pretty easy. It's McCaffrey, Jefferson, Kelce, Barkley. If I have one of these back picks, I've been trying to get the Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Fields game stack. That's kind of how I've been attacking it, which I've gotten a few times now.
It's $5 entry. It is a max 150. So there will be plenty of drafters maxing or getting close to that max. So certainly know what you're going up against here. And that's why we talk about these differentiating things. And it is tougher to do in a 6-player format. But as you can see, the drafts get fired up quickly. Jared's now a minute from starting. We've already got the 5 other drafters. We got the number 2 pick. And Jared, this is not the first time that you've had the 2 pick then we've been doing one of these. I forget if it was last week or the one before, but that's certainly a spot that you've been in.
Which I like this week again. I'm going to get Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. Would you prioritize Jefferson or Kelce if McCaffrey goes 1?
I believe Kelce this week. It's tough to have as much Evan Ingram love in my heart and say any other tight end's name, but I like Kelce as the spotlight tight end a little bit more than Justin Jefferson as the spotlight wide receiver.
Kelce hasn't had a blow-up game in a while now.
True.
But I still think it's there.
That said, it wouldn't be an every time this guy situation for me. I'm picking second, 10 times, and I'm definitely taking some Justin Jefferson there.
Yeah, well, that's easy. We get McCaffrey. I think the other reason to maybe consider Jefferson there is just that, based on ADP, if you're doing a lot of these, Kelce's often going to be there at 3, whereas Jefferson isn't. So if you do want to, spread your exposure a bit, that'd be the case to take Jefferson.
Is there any other running back that is close to McCaffrey for you this week, or is he just the clear number one and he's always the first one you're taking?
Yeah, he's the clearer one to me. I mean, I think Saquon's the clear two, even over Eckler to me. Just with the Eckler knee injury and the Chargers not having a ton to play for.
And the
It at
Rams
least
being a negative rushing matchup.
right. Yeah, it at least knocks Eckler, to me to be the clear. Eckler to me is closer to like the ETN, Dalvin Cook, James Conner tier this week for me.
I definitely agree. I think Saquon Barkley is probably even a little bit closer to that tier because the Colts are at least capable of playing good defense. So I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't have a ceiling game. The only issue for McCaffrey lately has been if they just don't happen to throw him the ball a lot, but he's scored in 4 straight games. So we know we're at least getting a good game from him as long as he's healthy. And of course, he always has monster game potential to him. So it was Christian McCaffrey for Jared in round 1. His round 2 pick is coming up on the clock right now, and your queue just got cleared out. We got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields going off the board just before this round 2 pick. Tyreek Hill's gone. AJ Brown is gone. We have, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown is gone. We got Travis Etienne joining Jared's team. So we got 2 running backs to start things out. You can't pick any more running backs now, right?
Yeah, we're not going to get Brian Robinson. Sorry.
That's all right. If you've got McCaffrey and Travis Etienne, I think you're doing all right. Now you can hit that flat area of wide receiver that you're talking about. And I say you can't take any more running backs because, again, it's one flex spot. So once you fill that flex spot with somebody, you've maxed out that running back position because you've got one running back starter. You got another running back in the flex. James Conner just went early in round 3 following George Kittle as the second tight end off the board at the end of round 2. Jared's turn again. Nobody in the queue yet. Looking at Keenan Allen among wide receivers.
Yeah, I
certainly agree with the safety of his targets.
I think I messed up here. I think I should have taken Kittle here and just taken whatever running back got back to me at this point. I was guaranteed to get either ETN, Connor, or Dalvin Cook. So I already don't like where this team is headed.
I think if we're talking about the ceiling potential, I think Travis Etienne's is higher than James Conner's or Dalvin Cook. They certainly all have ceiling potential this week. I don't like that Evan Ingram just left the board in the middle of round 3. So, maybe that's a mark in favor. That's earlier than his ADP has been. But I don't know. I don't think passing on Kittle is a killer here.
Okay, hope you're right. I mean, I just think I agree that ETN ceiling is higher, but I think it's close enough where just getting Kittle, who has obviously, shown massive upside these past couple of weeks, would have made sense there.
Is Hawkinson still on the board, though?
Yes, he is.
I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between him and George Kittle this week.
Okay, I honestly haven't been drafting much Hawkinson. And I kind of feel like I just missed the big game, and I'm not sure he can do it twice in a row, but that's probably not the right way to think about it.
Yeah, I think we bet on this offense scoring points. The team has not been able to limit opponents from scoring points. The Packers have been weak in coverage versus tight ends. And, he's been plenty involved. So I think he's certainly somebody to mix in here. Did not make it to your 4th round pick, though.
Nope, which I'm okay with, honestly. I'm gonna take a tight end with my last pick at this point.
All right. So you got a couple quarterbacks queued. We're looking at Trevor Lawrence. We're looking at Justin Herbert. Herbert obviously would stack with your Keenan Allen pick. Who else are you considering picking at this turn? You got wide receivers that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm going to take a wide out because I'm fine with either of those quarterbacks. This guy might take one of them, but I'm gonna take Devonta Smith as value at this point.
He was like 6th in wide receiver ADP, I believe, when we were looking at this beforehand. So I agree that that's a value pick at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, his ADP 17.5, so I got good value there.
All right, we're
losing more money on Justin Herbert. Let's do
it. Yeah. I mean, are you going to make it the ultimate smaller team and put Mike Evans on it too? I guess you can't because you already filled the flex spot, huh?
Trust me, I have plenty of Evans exposure already on Underdog. I'm not.
Oh, I believe you. I'm already tired of hearing about him.
All right, welcome to the squad, Herbert. Okay, now I could, if I wanted to, correlate this, I could take Higbee at tight end, but
it
feels gross. Like I'd rather take Goddard, Komet, or Njoku, or Taysom Hill. Honestly, we'll see who makes it back.
Don't chase Higbee. Jalen Hurts was still on the board as well when you took Justin Herbert. Did you think about him at all?
I didn't. Probably should have. I still don't think he's gonna play. We'll see.
That's, I was not aware of the automatic late swap thing. So I think that certainly makes it a good idea to mix in some Jalen Hurts because, you will get a decent quarterback mixed in. It certainly might
Sure.
not be a good one ultimately scoring wise, but it's going to be the 7th quarterback on the list. So it'll be decent.
Yeah, and if we get news that Hurts is in, he's gonna be a second round pick. I would think, no lower than a third round pick. So, and that was definitely a good time to get some Jalen Hurts if you want him.
As it is, we're looking at tight ends here. Got Higbee, Komet, and Njoku, Taysom Hill sitting in the queue. Certainly a good idea to try to queue up players ahead of time so you're not scrambling
Oh, yeah.
as much when you're on the clock, as I've alluded to before.
Who do you like among these four?
Like is a strong word. Is there anybody with a connection to anybody in your lineup besides Tyler Higbee?
Nah. Actually, yeah, Taysom Hill, Devonta Smith.
There you go. I
Maybe
guess
that.
that's a mark for Taysom Hill here.
Don't draft like this. This is an example of how not to draft.
Yeah. Hey, if
I
you're going
should
to draft
again.
a bunch of these teams, there are going to be some throwaways.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think I should have taken Kittle in round 2, and then a back in round 3, and I think I'd be feeling better about this team.
Yeah, because that would have maybe pushed your quarterback decision later, which would have been okay because we still have Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins on the market.
Yep.
And even though you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown on your team already, I think Goff can still fit even without that being the case.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I took Taysom Hill though, so I can feel better about the correlation at least, even when this lineup finishes in the bottom third.
If there's any way for the Saints to hang with the Eagles this week, it's going to
Yes.
be running the ball, I believe.
Yes, agreed.
So final build here. Let's take a look at the draft board too. Now that the final pick was made.
Yeah, that's the one thing Underdog needs to fix is you can't get to the draft board after the fact. Yeah.
Oh, I thought
I could pull up my team, but that's as good as I can do.
Huh. Well, so Jared, run us through what you ended up with and what you would have liked to have ended up with.
Yeah, so I got the Herbert, Keenan Allen stack, which I'm okay with. I still think Herbert has a big game coming just based on the lack of touchdowns he's had lately. I think that's going to snap back in his favor. I like the running backs. Again, we talked about I'm trying to get 2 of those top 6 guys, and I got the number 1 guy, and then Etienne, who I think has big upside against Houston this week. Got the Devonta Smith, Taysom Hill, little mini game stack there. So it's not horrible. Not my favorite team though. Again, I should have looked at the fact that there were 3 running backs that I still liked at that second round pick, and just been okay with getting one of them and taking Kittle in the second instead of Etienne. That's what I do differently.
That's part of why we are doing this though, because you're not likely to draft one team and win the money here. So part of it is going through, seeing what you should do differently next time. And that's why we're doing one of these for people to help them see a draft without having to throw their own $5 away. Now we're going to switch over to sleeper drafting on my computer. And like we said, the format here is a little bit different. It's still a draft, but it's 8 teams. It's full PPR. So the scoring right away is different. It's the entire slate. Obviously, the Thursday game has already been played, but we have all the rest of the games. We have Monday in play. And so that just leaves more players out there, more to think about. I went ahead and signed up for a draft. We wait for this to fill. This one, another key difference is it's not all human drafters. It could be if we get 7 other humans signing up, but if they don't, the draft is scheduled. You can see the countdown on the screen if you have really good eyes. If they don't fill an 8-team league in that time, it just fills out with computer drafters, which speeds up the clock for one thing, but also is going to alter how drafters are performing in here.
I think the big edge on sleeper is knowing what the ADP and how the queue looks, because you can, like you said, these drafts fly. There's some good players buried in the queue on sleeper. So I think having a good feel for that is important over here.
Yeah, one thing I would like is to be able to see the ADP and also adjust my rankings ahead of the draft. If that's possible here, I haven't figured out how yet. So I did at least take the sensible step that I should have done previously of actually making lists of players fitting with the draft format here. So, for instance, putting a line after my top 8 quarterbacks, so I at least know what I'm looking at when I'm on the clock and not frantically going through all of the lists even more than I might otherwise be. My draft is fired up now. I am in the first spot, Jared. So I think my decision Yeah, my decision here, I think, is either Justin Jefferson or Travis Kelce. Christian McCaffrey is in the mix as well. I think there's a little bit more of a Travis Kelce advantage here because we've got 8 teams. So we're going to have 7 other tight ends involved. I'm going to have a bigger gap over most of the competitors here. I don't know. What would be your favorite PPR player of the week, regardless of position?
Yeah, I still prefer McCaffrey over Jefferson, but I think I'm with you that Kelce would be my 101 here with the full PPR and it being 8 teams.
Yeah, I think I'm not going 100% Kelce from the one spot if I did pick one a bunch of times, but especially in this format where really we want like floor is even more important here than it is. We're all about upside in the underdog drafting, but ultimately I'm going to take this team and I'm going to pick smaller competitions to put it against. I'm either going to go up against like 7 other teams. I'm going to do head to heads. So I don't need ceiling as much as I need good scoring. And Travis Kelce is just like the guy on the slate that I know is going to give me really good points.
And I mean, I don't know if you just noticed, but McCaffrey was 7th in the queue here. So you can get in some of these drafts and, land with the 4 or 5 pick with some computer picks in front of you and end up getting McCaffrey there. So that's another reason to probably go Kelce or Jefferson at 1.
And there's a quick tick here. I'm going to take Chris Godwin as a safe wide receiver, and then I'm going to take a running back here. James Conner, Dalvin Cook, both there. Travis Etienne still there. I'm going to start with Travis Etienne because even though he doesn't catch passes, he is as safe a bet, I think, as anybody on the slate.
He can catch passes, though.
Yeah, he doesn't, but he can. So
I like those picks. I think Hopkins is the other guy I would have considered there, especially in this format. My concern with him is just the ultimate ceiling, but I think he's a super safe pick.
Now it's going to be time to queue up some wide receivers so I don't get caught here. I am looking at another list that people can't see. I'm scrolling past Mike Evans before Jared.
That's a nice run of picks for a guy looking for a wide receiver, man. Look at all that green and red and orange.
Yep, DeAndre Hopkins still on the board, so I'm going to take him first. But I already have him queued, so I'm going to steal a few more seconds and look around a little bit. Is T. Higgins still out there? T. Higgins is drafted. Monte Smith.
Yeah, I like
drafted.
I like Juju. I mean, DK Metcalf, I know the matchup's tough, but I think DK can beat any matchup.
I think I'll go ahead with Juju here. I think I also could have gone running back there and waited on wide receiver. We do have 2 flex spots to play with. I'm most likely going to go wide receiver in those spots, but I like going ahead and locking them in for the PPR format.
Oh, Ramondre. He just went. That would have been nice.
All right, we're almost back to me. You can see how fast it goes with all these computer picks. The running backs are way down. I'm queuing Brian Robinson. I'm queuing Tyler Algier because I can take those guys later.
Yep.
I need a quarterback still. I've got Hopkins. I got Juju. I got Godwin. So I don't really want one of those guys. Trevor Lawrence, Herbert, Jared Goff still out there.
There's only 2 more teams need a quarterback.
Yeah, I think I'm going to wait.
I like Sanders.
I think that you can. Well, never mind. I'm not going to say something that might not be true just because I feel like talking about something. All right. So let's see what else is here at wide receiver. And I should have queued up more players ahead of time. I think I'll go ahead and take a quarterback now. I'm going to go Burrow just for that high scoring matchup. I don't care really about stacking here because, again, I'm not trying to win a large field tournament. I just want guys that are going to score. I learned last week that leaning toward Geno to stacking with a receiver over just some better bets to give me points in general did not work out. Same deal with Justin Herbert, actually, last week.
I think you should be treating these sleeper drafts as cash games, essentially, DFS cash games where maybe you use stack as a tiebreaker, but don't be looking to prioritize it. Robinson.
All right. I like both of those guys, so I could see it going either way.
Yeah, to me, they were close, but with Gibson out, I think Robinson. Now, we're going to be updating our projections right after we hop off here, and Robinson's going to climb even further.
Yeah, that makes sense. So We'll take a look back at the team real quick. Obviously, I still need to work on putting guys in the queue. I don't love Miles Sanders this week. I probably would have made a different pick there. I'm okay. I got to see if there are any subs allowed here. I honestly don't remember within the rules. But, this is the team: Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, Miles Sanders, Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Juju, Brian Robinson. So there would have been some game stack for Tyler Algier with DeAndre Hopkins. Doesn't matter as much here as it would in a larger tournament. I'm okay with this team. I'm not sure I'm going to chase the biggest prize possible, but I'm okay with putting it up against some head-to-head spots and maybe a like $10 8-teamer.
I like it a lot. You got Travis Kelce, and you got a whole bunch of targets coming at wide receiver, and then I feel good about the running back group, and then Burrow's obviously strong.
That's true. Maybe you'll talk me into putting a little bit more money on it. So
load up.
When you are playing it, these are the options: 5, 10, 25. It goes higher than that, up to 1,000. I don't think I'm playing $1,000 head to heads, but you can, if you've got that kind of cash, load it into Sleeper. And of course, if you have not played on Sleeper before, you can use promo code Draft Sharks. You can click the link at the bottom of this podcast post, wherever you're getting it, to get your first deposit matched up to $100. You can play with free money in these final 2 weeks of the regular season, and then just have it around. You can play over-unders through the playoffs. It's, plenty of options to try to win money here. And really, Jared, that's ultimately what we're trying to do here, is help people win money with these drafts.
For sure. And I think there's a lot of edges in these drafts. I think, not that DFS is like solved, but I think there's more of an edge to these contests where there's just not as much content. There's just not as much data out there and experience for how to win these, how to best attack them. So yeah, I've been loving both of these contests.
Anything that is not being played by as many people or has not been around as long is going to have more opportunity for you to find an edge. So that's what we're trying to do, find an edge. We appreciate you joining us for this, our third DFS draft show. Check out draftsharks.com for all the content that you need for playing DFS this week and for setting your lineups across formats. For Jared Small and the rest of the Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.